Hey guys, here's my review of Kotlin after using it for about 2 years now professionally, and I've used it a bit in my spare time as well. I've tried a lot of other programming languages, and let's see how it stacks up and compares to the rest. I break things down into 4 main categories, which I'll all give a rating 1 to 10: tools and frameworks, features, fun, and then finally performance. To begin with, let's look at the tools and frameworks. So the biggest one is IntelliJ. Now, Kotlin is made by the creators of IntelliJ, and because of that, the only way to actually have fun while using Kotlin is to use the IntelliJ IDE. So if you love your VS Code, you love your VM, you love your Emacs, you're out of luck because pretty much the language server tooling and just tooling in general is much, much worse if you don't use IntelliJ. Even though IntelliJ is really great, I got to kind of have to give it negative points here because you really force into one category. That being said, IntelliJ is actually super powerful and I think everyone that uses it loves it. But next up we have the Kotlin frameworks. You pretty much have access to all the big Java frameworks. I've only really ever used Spring Boot. I know there's Vertex and Quarkus and other stuff like that available, but Spring Boot's alright. It does make your files pretty massive, and when it doesn't work, it can be pretty annoying, but it gets the job done for the most part. And setting up basic, HTTP servers, JSON, RPC is super simple, which is great. As well as that, we got Gradle and Maven. So these are the main things for downloading dependencies and importing packages and stuff. Honestly, these are really not that great to use. They're very troublesome. When they work, which is nice, but when there's a build issue, which happens a lot of the time, they're super annoying to debug and they're just very unintuitive. The error messages are not helpful at all. And honestly, it's super painful using these things. That being said, Maven does give you access to a lot of great frameworks, especially since Kotlin is backwards compatible. You get access to all the Java frameworks like Kafka, which is super useful. So in terms of the variety of frameworks available, there's almost always a tool that's going to cover what you need. Example of me having issues with Gradle is I was trying to use Kotlin multi-platform, which I know is a somewhat new thing, but I was just following the basic tutorial and there was just build errors on build errors even after downloading the example provided by Google. Downloading it, running it, just runs into build errors. The error messages are cryptic. It's just really not a great experience. And another point I had is that IntelliJ is kind of pay to win. If you don't have a good computer, it is terrible. I used to have to use a Intel MacBook Pro for work, which should be a decent computer by all accounts, the 2019 one, I think. But the fan was just constantly running. The programs was constantly crashing. You really need a behemoth to be running IntelliJ. Ever since I upgraded to M1 Mac, it's been pretty smooth sailing. It still crashes occasionally, so it has its problems, but it more than makes up for it with all of its benefits. But yeah, just noting that if you don't have a good computer, like at least a M1 Mac, I strongly don't recommend using IntelliJ because it would just crash constantly. But if you want to use Kotlin, you don't really have a choice, unfortunately. Overall, I give these tools a 7. As I said, you get access to all the Java frameworks. There's a lot of great stuff there. And IntelliJ is great in its own way, but yeah, it has its downsides. Next up, we have features. I think this is one aspect where Kotlin really shines. The first one is null safety. Null safety is such a game changer, seriously. You never have to worry about null pointer exceptions. That's a lie, you still do a little bit when you're dealing with Java frameworks that don't have those null safety guarantees. But it really simplifies things in the application code. It makes things really clean, and yeah, it's fun to use. Next up, we have garbage collection. Kotlin is a garbage collected language for better or for worse. So although the performance takes a hit from that, it makes things pretty simple when it comes to actually writing the code. And then here I got functional programming. And Kotlin does functional programming in a very friendly way. It's very easy to pick up and understand. And out of all the different functional programming languages I've tried, it definitely has the nicest approach to it. Yeah, it makes debugging very easy with all the constant variables. And another great thing about Kotlin is it doesn't force you to do functional programming. You're still very easily able to write non-functional program. You can easily make for loops, variables. Even though as a whole it's encouraged by the Kotlin and in the best practice these functional programming, you're never forced to. Say you're doing a competitive programming problem and you can't think of how to do it in an efficient functional way. You can easily just switch to a iterative way, make a for loop, and the syntax and everything for that is great and really easily supported. Overall, I'll give the features a 9. Null safety is just one of the biggest game changers, and yeah, I hope more languages adopt it in the future. And I think the way that Kotlin has handled null safety is really, really great. If you want to hear more about null safety, I think I made another video about it. Next up, we got fun. So this is where I'd say Kotlin's best feature is, and the best thing about Kotlin is it's just fun to use. Everything just works. For example, the strong typing is a godsend. You can see I have this example here on the left. If you just hover over any variable, you instantly get the type. You don't need to worry about what type it is. I hate dynamically typed languages. Another great thing is that you never have to Google a syntax. Like, if I'm writing a Java program or something and I'm like, oh, how do I convert this string to an integer or something like that? You probably have to Google that. Or if you're like, how do I convert this into a float? That should be very simple, but it's not. Unless you have used Java before and done that specific use case, it's really not intuitive how to do it. Compare this to Kotlin. Like the IntelliJ tooling is just amazing. Like look at this image on the right. If you just write the full stop to bring up all the methods, firstly straight away you can see all the methods and what they do. But you just write two, and pretty much all of the basic types have these functions built into them, like the toString function, toInt, toLong. You never really have to worry about simple stuff like type conversions, where in other languages that can just slow you down. I know they're small things, but it just makes it more fun when everything works smoothly like this. Especially a major one being the toString function applying to everything in Kotlin. Like by default, you can convert objects to strings. It's just so convenient. And when you're debugging as well, the printing is great. You can print easily in a string. You can print anything. It's just super convenient. Another thing it has over Java is that there's no getters or setters, so you're not bogged down with all that boilerplate. And if you want to, you can override the get and set functions still. So you still have the ability to write getters and setters when you need to, but you're not forced to. And it's just, yeah, very nice. Another great part that makes Kotlin so fun is that it has, in my opinion, the most enjoyable syntax to use out of any language I've used, and by far, honestly. Especially, as I said, Kotlin is a functional programming language. And the way you can just easily include lambdas is amazing. Like, I got two examples here that do the same thing. Like on the left, we use the map function. The map function is a game changer. That's one way to square the numbers in the array. Just go through each iterable in the list and times it by itself, and that will return a list of all the numbers squared. But then another great feature, which I don't think I've seen in another language before, but maybe I'm just missing out. I'm sure it's stolen from something, but being able to easily write your own extension methods on objects using their data is so convenient. And especially when you have a large list of chained methods like like you apply toInt, then you square it, and then blah blah blah. It's just super nice to use. You don't have to deal with all this nested parentheses. Yeah, everything just works with Kotlin, and the syntax never gets in your way. I really love the syntax and what they've done with Kotlin. So I'm going to give the fun a 10 out of 10. Yeah, big call, but it's definitely the most enjoyable programming language I've used, and honestly, by far. Finally, we got performance. So you can see these images are not very good. I got bloated, average speed, and big files. When you're dealing with Kotlin and these large, maybe this is just more of a enterprise system sort of thing, but the package hell is just crazy. Like you download one dependency and 1,000 others are downloaded for you, and yeah, the packages get really bloated really quickly, especially when using something like Spring Boot. As I said, I haven't used alternatives like Quarkus and Vertex, but yeah, they're big files and they don't really run particularly fast. I've tried using Kotlin a few times for competitive programming, just for fun, and several times, if you rewrite the same program in Kotlin and C++, the C++ version will pass and the Kotlin version will time limit exceed. And that's a trivial difference, but yeah. Another issue I have with the performance of Kotlin is the build times. The build times are bad, guys. Like I remember I was at work and I had to work on a legacy Java repo for a bit, which I hadn't touched in a while. And then I ran the tests in the Java repo. This is just using JUnit, which we use in Kotlin and in Java. And the test just ran and I almost couldn't believe my eyes. I'm not used to the test just running. I'm used to having, even on the most basic tests, assert 1 equals 1. That should take like 10 seconds in Kotlin, at least. Like Kotlin just does not build that quickly, and yeah, it definitely hurts the iterative process when you're programming. So overall, the performance is okay. Don't get me wrong. It's not slow, but it's definitely not fast, and the build times are definitely not inspiring. So I'll give it a 5. Overall, yeah, Kotlin is a great language. I strongly recommend it. If you just want to create applications that work and have a fun time making them, I guess the philosophy of Kotlin is you create all these beautiful data structure abstractions, and then it's just so easy to manipulate things how you want. Yeah, when it comes to languages that just work, I think Kotlin is honestly unparalleled. It is the most convenient and fun language to use that I've touched so far. And if you're okay with the downsides, then yeah, I strongly recommend giving it a try. Thanks for watching.